Good afternoon, everybody. For those that don't know me, I am Mike. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Smooch. Smooch is a company based out of Montreal and San Francisco that is really kind of like infrastructure for chatbots and messaging programs all over the world. So I left Montreal to come here, and it was about minus 20 Celsius when I left, and the ground was completely iced, so I'm not sure I'm ever leaving Tel Aviv. And thank you very much for welcoming me here. So the reason why, it's a beautiful country, the reason why you're all here, even though the lunch is going to be served in minutes, is because, well, you're all building the future. You're building the future of bots. You're building the future of conversational technology. You're thinking about ways that the medium itself is going to be transforming how business works and how we interact with technology. So what I'm going to do today is really try and scratch the surface a little bit to see what are we doing right and what are we doing wrong as an industry in particular, and how can we be aligning ourselves more towards the visions of science fiction and the visions of that conversational future that we want to get to, but that still seems to be out of reach. So how do we get here? You know, the main way that we got here was that messaging apps exploded. They've really become the dominant way that we communicate today as people. There's over 4 billion accounts around the world, and that's just personal accounts. And businesses over the last few years, as the platforms have opened up, have come onto these platforms. And now not only do we have businesses on the messaging apps, we also have new channels, like the voice interfaces that are opening up. We have the potential for automation through bots. There's so much activity and so much attention that is really being spent. And that's what led my friend Chris Messina to declare 2016 the year of conversational commerce. And as many of you know, this set up a huge hype cycle in the industry. VCs were pouring money into seed companies again, and it was really exciting times. And then in 2017, the headlines changed, and no longer were they so declarative. They became, well, will 2017 be the year of conversational commerce? And depending on your perspective, this may be yes or no. I'm still of the no perspective. And in 2018, the headlines haven't been written yet, but they're definitely becoming a bit more positive. So I guess we don't know what the future is yet, but an easy way to start is by considering what the future definitely isn't. And it's hard to do this because there's a lot of exciting technology being built, especially by people in this room. So one thing that I can say really confidently, and is a little controversial, is that, well, the future is not about bots. And apologies, we had some Mac PC slide translation issues. So the future is not about bots because bots themselves are not new. These kinds of conversational interfaces have been around for a while. We all remember the paperclip. We all hate the paperclip. Some of us remember Microsoft Bob. They've been on IRC. The IVR that we dial into is a bot. And even in 1984, it almost started nuclear war. So conversational interfaces have been around for years. They've been a form of expressing intent and about navigating an interface, but they haven't been the end-all and be-all. And the same can be said about voice user interfaces. I think they're awesome. I have about 4 different Amazon Echo devices in my house. And I still don't think that the future is about this. And in fact, science fiction writers don't think so either. You know, I grew up watching Star Trek, and Star Trek was by far still is one of my favorite shows and inspires me. That although they have the best voice assistant that anyone can imagine, the Star Trek computer, it was the 24th century, and they still used a user interface that was extremely complicated. But what's amazing is that voice was thought of really intelligently by the creators of that show, because they realized that you can't accomplish everything by voice. Saying things, you know, our speech doesn't convey enough information sometimes on its own. What made the experience really powerful was that people were able to use voice to start things off and then turn to a console and complete the command. There was this concept of being able to have computing that was always aware of what you were doing and what you wanted to do, and use the various modes of technology around you to be able to help you accomplish the task. At Smooch, this is something that's come up for us again and again. So we've been, you know, we raised a big seed round, and you probably know us from there. And we've been spending a lot of time working with some of the really big software companies to get them ready for the coming of messaging and the conversational revolution. Through this, we've also partnered with pretty much every messaging platform on the planet, the ones that are public and that are open, that have APIs, and even the ones that are still closed and not available to the general development public yet. And this has led us to bring thousands of businesses and process millions and millions of conversations, some automated, some human-based. So we've seen a lot of things, and I don't think as an industry that across any of these thousands of businesses and millions of conversations, we've yet to arrive at anything that's close to the future vision that we all share in this room. But I think that we know the path of how we get there now, and this wasn't so clear a few years ago. One of the stories I like to tell, and one of the things that inspired us to start Smooch, was actually a really personal story. So this is my grandmother, and it's a picture that has been around in my family for a really long time. My mom has a copy of this picture, my aunts and uncles have a copy of the picture. She's passed away, but my grandfather still has this in his things. And it was taken right before the war. And what matters about this picture isn't what you see, it's what you don't see, it's what's on the back. And it's only on my grandfather's copy. So what's on the back is just a really simple note, but it's a message from her to him that changes the entire meaning of what this photograph is. So these few words, when I read them, made me think differently about my grandmother, about my grandfather, about their relationship, about love, about everything. And if a few words on the back of a photograph can change its interpretation and its positioning so much, it made me think about technology. And if we look at the way that we're designing systems today, especially the way we're designing bots today, we're designing them to process what's right in front of us. The message that is coming in on the communication channel, the speech and the intent that is delivered to a voice assistant. What we're not doing in our technology typically is looking at the context around the communication, at looking at what is not said, what is just an element or a factor in the situation. Right, so what we believe is that at Smooch especially, the future of messaging is all about people and the context around their activities. It has nothing to do with the channel. WhatsApp opening up this year or not, or never, is not going to make a difference. It has nothing to do with how rich the user interface elements are. It even has very little to do with the quality of the voice text-to-speech or whatever it is. And think about it, the next time, say, you see a teenager that's stuck to their phone during a family meal. Are they really immersed in their technology, or are they immersed in the people that they're interacting with? And if you were to pick up the phone and look at those snaps and look at those text messages they're exchanging, would you be able to understand it without knowing the context of their relationships and of what's going on in those conversations and those dialogues? So that's why when we think about what we're building at Smooch and what we all have to build in our products as an industry, we really think that we need to stop thinking about messaging and about conversations as being a flow of data, but start thinking them instead of being about the person at the core. So the way that we map this out conceptually is to think of the future messaging platform as having three main components. At the center is what we call the profile and conversational core. This is the area that is remembering who the person is and really mapping out identity, figuring out who they are, what their history is, and what interactions they've previously had. Another important piece that is tightly linked to this is the multi-channel translator. We know that we have a ton of messaging apps available from Viber to Facebook to SMS that we can engage on now. And then that doesn't even bring into account all of the new technologies, like whatever speaker you connect to or whatever PC you use or desktop assistant you use. So the point of this module would be to harmonize the experience so that you can start a conversation in one place, move it over to another, and make sure that the experience is rich along the way. And finally, a conversation orchestrator, where you bring in the first elements of intelligence, where you look at all of the data that you have about a person, all of their interactions and their preferences, and you use that to pull together information from different systems, from a reservation system, from a customer service help desk, from a bot, in order to create the experience. So what does this unlock concretely in terms of applications that we can build today? Well, the first is we can change the way that we accomplish slot filling in NLP by making it just a little bit smarter and a little bit more context aware. We can achieve continuity across messaging channels. And then you can really make bot-to-human handoffs completely seamless. So to start going into this, we'll start talking about the slot filling. And a great way to think about this is to look at some work that has been done and published in the industry early last year. And that was by Shane Mack of Assist, who basically said that traditionally bots work in a kind of tree-based flow, where they bring the user through some kind of conversation and you kind of go through the steps in ordering a coffee sequentially. But people actually do things like order a coffee in an unordered, unstructured way, where they just say what they need and they get what they want. So what he was postulating was that bots and proper NLP and slot filling should be accomplished by getting an intent, looking at what information is available there, and then having the bot to generate the questions to get the missing information that wasn't presented. So let's get a concrete example to see what I mean there. Starbucks did it in their Barista app. So if you get the Barista beta app and you ask it for a coffee, you need to provide two parameters: type of coffee you want and the size. If you don't provide the size, like in this case, then the bot is going to ask you what size you want it at. So pretty smart. Of course, the bot can also process other kinds of parameters. So if you have more complex coffee orders, it'll process that too. And it figures all of this out. And this is really impressive, but a bunch of you are building NLP platforms, and this shouldn't really be that surprising. It's 2018, we should be able to understand the command. But you'll notice that what's happening here in this bot is that it's doing a really, really good job at understanding the text that's being sent, but it's not making any assumptions or has no knowledge about the person on the other end of the phone that's making the order. And although this is a big simplification, what happens if the only thing you did as a bot was, instead of just processing the order, you actually just stored what it was, and you built a data structure that basically had a list of the recent orders? Something as simple like this just enables you to be able to interpret a command like "my usual please," and then judge according to time of day, location, or whatever else, what the most probable answer can be. So now you've gone from a complex kind of awkward interaction to something that's really simple and contextually relevant. And this is the way that people actually interact with their barista. At least that's what I do at my coffee shop. At 8 a.m., I'll have my latte, and at 3:30, when I need that kick, I'll have the espresso to get it. So once we can be smarter about the NLP side, and we start recording who people are, now we can take that representation we have of a person, and we can move them from channel to channel. So I've got a great video that shows one example of what this can look like. So in this video, we're going to see how a customer who is shopping for an investment product starts on Facebook and will begin speaking with a bot on Facebook. Now, on the other side, we have an agent dashboard that right now is just showing the conversation as it's happening. You'll notice that the user on Facebook is interacting with the bot, they're going through the flow, but we probably don't want to do a big investment over Facebook. Banks, for compliance reasons and other reasons, will want to move this over to a secure channel that they control, and maybe even a human, to be able to do it. So they send a button to Messenger that prompts the user to download and install the app, and we intelligently transfer the context so that the entire conversation that was happening in Facebook now appears in the brand's app. At that point, we can bring in agents, we can do more, and we can really go through the kind of entire flow and by transferring context from Facebook to an app. So as you go forth and you build your conversational products, whether it's a bot, whether it's a CRM, or whatever service you're doing, think about these three concepts. How are you going to be capturing user information and using it for something valuable that isn't just marketing and advertising, but that helps you enrich the experience? Think about how your bot, even if you're targeting Facebook or one of the major platforms, think about how customers will actually be using your service and what channels they should be able to bridge through and bridge around to get their job done. And then think about how you're going to tie all of this together, because your service doesn't exist in isolation. It's really part of a a broader kind of digital life of the customer. And if you need help doing this and you want to take a look at what we've done to make a lot of this much easier, you come talk to us. We're Smooch, and we're happy to help. Thanks.